you very much. Are we still sharing in front of on Zoom? Beautiful. So I know this is like getting late, and I think I'm the last presenter here. Oh, 2 more. Perfect. Okay, excellent. But I like to make this a little bit more interactive. And so I apologize to those in front of Zoom. I can't really interact with you, but we are going to divide those in the audience into 4 groups. Okay. So if you want to get up and sit closer to other people, you're welcome to. If you sit by yourself, you're going to be in a group by yourself. Okay. So join other human friends, please. We're all lovey and cuddly, and we're all nice people. All right. I love it. Thank you all for getting closer. I love it. Okay, so we're going to divide into 4 groups. How about the 3 of you in the little triangle here? You're one group, and the 3 of you in the 3rd row, you guys are one group. You can kick my back to the side. Sorry. And the 2 gentlemen here in front, you are one group. All right. And then the 3 of you in the back, you're a number 4 group. And anyone outside beyond the curtains want to join us in playing, you're welcome to. All right. One of you is going to be the probiotic group. Raise your hand. Who wants to be the probiotic? Oh, see, there she goes. She was number 1. All right. You get a prize for being the first person to raise your hand. So you guys are the probiotics group, okay? And we're going to have another group that's going to be the IBS group, the irritable bowel syndrome group. All right, I love it. I was going to say no one's going to raise their hand for this one. I appreciate you raising your hand. Okay, so you guys back there are irritable bowel syndrome group. Yeah, I have 2 more groups left. You guys up front, okay? One is going to be a risk factor group. Who's going to be the risk factor? All right, thank you, Dr. Pitt here. So you guys are risk factor group. 2 gentlemen here. I'm sorry, you're a little slow. You're the treatment group. Okay, you're the treatment group. All right, excellent. I love it. We got it. Hey, so some quick definitions. I was asked to talk a little bit about plant-based diet, vegetarian diets, as it relates to some common GI illnesses. In this situation, we're going to talk about IBD and IBS, just because we like acronyms, right? So, but however, this does create confusion. Inflammatory bowel disease is a chronic inflammatory condition. Namely, you hear about things like Crohn's disease and ulcerative colitis. Irritable bowel syndrome, IBS, you guys all know the Rome criteria out there. I don't need to reiterate this, but the way I think about it is really people who come in with gut symptoms that have essentially a negative workup, like all the blood work, all the imaging, everything that we currently know how to test for are negative. So it can be a little frustrating. People are like, I'm hurting, I'm having bloating, I have all these symptoms, but what do you mean there's nothing wrong with me, right? And I usually encourage people to think along the ways that this is sort of like a visceral nervous system sensitivity issue or dysfunction issue. And that really helps a lot of patients to conceptualize and wrap their mind around this very, very amorphous disease. We're not going to spend too much time on IBS today, but just to kind of set the stage there. Now, to get back to inflammatory bowel disease, IBD, okay? Oh, sorry. In the 20th century, the century I was born and raised in, I know my daughter actually asked me the other day, she said, Mom, were you actually born before the year 2000? And yeah, thank you. I was like, yes. I don't think she felt like time even existed before 2000. So yes, I'm ancient. Back when I was in med school, the incidence of IBD was highest in the developed countries. We call this the north-south disease, right? In the developed countries, we see IBD at a much higher incidence than we did in developing countries, okay? And so this had to do with social economic class and the way you were raised. Now, in the 21st century, the incidence is now on the rise in traditionally what's considered low incidence areas. So why? Why is that? Now, one of the things, there's a chat on Zoom. I'm not sure how to address that. Maybe you guys can help me with that later. So one of the things is obviously childhood immunogenicity may play a role. And if anyone's interested, I'm happy to talk about feeding worms to people and how that actually helps with your inflammatory bowel disease, okay? I don't have time to go into those studies right now, but if you remember and remind me, I will be happy to talk about it. That's the fun part of being a GI doctor. I get to talk about worms, okay? And the other thing is actually westernization of our diets. Does that play a role in the increasing incidence of IBD? Increased consumption of animal products and animal fats and sugars, right? Does that have any correlations with IBD? So here are some studies. This is a case control study from Iran, where they looked at 62 newly diagnosed ulcerative colitis patients versus case control 124 case controls. And they found that people who were on a westernized diet had a higher incidence, higher risk of developing ulcerative colitis, so chronic inflammation in the colon. Now, there are more studies. This is a Turkish study that looked at increasing meat consumption, increase your risk of these chronic inflammatory bowel disease by 47%. Here's another study that actually found that the risk quadrupled when you are on a more higher animal fat study. So the risk factor group, who are you? You're taking notes in your minds, right? Just kidding. It's okay. So this is the EPIC study that Dr. Petier also mentioned. This is a European prospective investigation into cancer and nutrition study. It actually looked at 1/3 of a million people. That is a huge study when it comes to medical studies. And so it looked at the incidences of ulcerative colitis and Crohn's disease. And it found that people who consume more sugar and soft drinks and a low vegetable intake had more ulcerative colitis. And people overall who ate more sweets had significantly higher risk of Crohn's disease and ulcerative colitis, right? So all those sugars are doing something to our gut and to our inflammatory process, abnormal inflammatory process, if I may mention. So we just talked about risk factor group, remember, right? We just have talked about how westernization of diets increase your risk for ulcerative colitis and Crohn's disease. Now, here's a study that actually showed that vegetarian diet reduces the risk of Crohn's disease by 70% in girls and 80% in boys. That's a significant reduction, right? Okay, risk factor group. What is your take-home message? Shout it out. You're not there yet. Probiotics group. Your chances coming. Hold your horses. Yes, sweets are bad, especially in boys. Yes, right. So westernization of sugar. Yes. Not eating fruits and vegetables. Yes. So for those on Zoom, right, what the risk factor group conclusion is westernization of diets with more sugar, less vegetables are bad, and more vegetables are good, especially for boys. So all you men out there, pay attention, okay? So, but how does that happen, right? I mean, that was the question, right? So what? I mean, these are association studies, obviously, they're not causal, right? So what is happening? Why is it that our diet actually increases or decreases our risk of inflammatory bowel disease, right? I'm sorry? Dysbiosis. Oh, I love it. I love it. I have to pay you guys later for this. So probiotic group, your chance is coming up. Pay attention now. So what do probiotics are little organisms, right? They're alive. They're like little itty bitty things, right? They eat, right? They need some nutrition in order to stay alive, right? What do they eat? Anyone? What do probiotics eat to stay alive? Don't say prebiotics, please. Fiber. Yes, wow, what a smart group here. Yes. Probiotics simply eat fiber. And where do we find fiber in? Eggs? Dairy? No. Fruits and vegetables, plants. This is how I explain to my patients. You know what fiber is? It is the skeleton for plants, right? If you think about it, everything that moves, seafood, things that have legs, right? Chicken, meat, pork, whatever, right? All of those things have skeletons already, right? So the things that don't have skeleton are plants. So fiber is simply the skeleton for your plants. Otherwise, they'll fall to the ground. right? So that's all they eat, right? So when probiotics are not getting fiber, okay, and that comes from fruits and vegetables and plants, as you just talked about, what happens to the probiotics? This is not a trick question. They're starving. And then you're starving them to death. That's simple, right? I mean, this is not a super scientific talk here, obviously, right? So it is very simple. Probiotics groups, okay? You guys got this, right? So probiotics eat fiber, right? When you are not feeding your body the fruits and vegetables and plant-based foods, what are you doing? You're starving your probiotics to death. It's that simple, okay? You got that? All right. Lady in the white t-shirt, it's your job to remember that sentence that we just summarized. Probiotics eat fiber, okay? With no fiber, probiotics starve to death. Can you remember that one? Thank you. Thank you. That's your job, okay? All right. Excellent. Thank you very much for participating. So now we're like, how do diets affect the probiotic microbiome, right? People talk about this a lot. This is actually a landmark study that was done by Di Filippo. He studied children, and he looked at a rural village in Africa, in Burkina Faso, where in Africa, in this tribe, people ate sort of a more indigenous diet that contained a lot of carbohydrates, fiber, and non-animal source proteins, right? And by the way, I tell all of my patients, I said, look at this. This human body was perfectly engineered, perfectly designed, perfectly evolved for a hunting-gathering lifestyle, right? It took millions of years to make this perfect engineering piece of body, but it was really designed for this hunting-gathering lifestyle, right? And what do people do in a hunting-gathering lifestyle? They're active. They walk more than 150 minutes a week, right? I mean, on average, in a hunting-gathering lifestyle that we currently have studied in Africa, the men walked about 11 miles a day hunting. Women walked about, on average, 5 miles a day gathering, okay? And what else do they do in a hunting-gathering lifestyle? They ran, right? They walked, they ran, and what did they eat? Berries, very good, thank you. Lots of fiber. Sorry, I'm a fiber queen, can you tell? Root vegetables, thank you very much. Yes, root vegetable has lots of fiber, right? Just simply things that they pulled from the ground. And I have to say, I'm really sorry for all you men here in the audience. The native men were not always successful at hunting. Sorry. So most of the nutrition for humans came from women gathering. It was really a gathering hunting lifestyle, not so much the macho, hunting gathering lifestyle. I'm sorry, okay? So we got most of our nutrients from high fibers roughage. That's really all it is, right? And so that's the group that they studied here was sort of simulating that as much as possible in a rural African village. And then they compared that to a modern European children group of children that ate more rich animal proteins, sugar, starch, fat, low in fiber, foods that I kind of call synthetic foods, right? I mean, our human capabilities got so smart that we can synthesize food. We can duplicate animals, mass-produce animals, factorize animals, right? And eat a lot of them. So men don't have to go hunt anymore. You can just sit at home. I won't say what you're doing sitting at home. And then just go to the grocery store and buy this little carton of thing with little red flesh in it that's manufactured, essentially, right? And so what happened to the microbiome, okay, between the children living in Africa, living a lifestyle that's simulating a gathering hunting lifestyle and a modern lifestyle, right? You put this perfectly engineered body for a gathering hunting lifestyle, into this modern lifestyle where we can't even walk for 30 minutes a day, right? Let alone 5 miles or 11 miles. We're eating all this synthetic food instead of natural food, we're just pulling off the ground, right? Of course, we all get sick. We were just never designed for this lifestyle. That's all. We just need to speed up human evolution and create a new human species that fits this lifestyle. So we can work on that later. So this is the conclusion. The conclusion was that the microbiota of the children in Africa compared to the microbiota of the children in Europe had much greater microbial richness. What do I mean by that? That is actually, people talk about probiotics all the time, and I'm so sorry. There is so much partial truth and confusion out there about probiotics. I wish I can come back and give another whole talk on it, just because I get frustrated with all the stuff that people talk about it out there. But the key to probiotics is not what you're taking, the pills or the supplements or whatever. You really want to feed your native probiotics that you are supposed to have. And the more variety, the healthier you're going to be. That is the key. It's not so much the number, it's the variety of probiotics, because they do so much to our body, right? They affect our body in so many different ways. So the more variety that your little ecosystem has, the more balanced you will be and the better health you would have, right? And as we know that probiotics, they eat fiber. What do they make? They make short-chain fatty acids, which help to reduce inflammation, right? And these children in Africa also had more of the beneficial probiotics and less of the harmful probiotics, basically. Again, it's the variety and what species that you actually have in your microbiome. That is really what makes a big difference here, okay? So when we eat fruits and vegetables, they are, lady in the white t-shirt. Yes, thank you. That's the food for your probiotics. Your carrots, most of it is going to feed your probiotics. They're thanking you. The little buggers are in there going, thank you for feeding me carrots, okay? So thank you. And then in turn, what do the probiotics do? They're making butyrate, short-chain fatty acid, that are then in turn reducing your inflammation. And also all these fruits and vegetables are also giving us phytochemicals and polyphenols that we know are have a lot of anti-inflammatory properties, right? So I'm just going to skip this another technical slide here. So basically polyphenols have a lot of anti-inflammatory properties, and you all sort of know that already. So, and we also know that when we have altered microbiome, right, it is associated with higher incidence of IBD. And here are some of the studies that demonstrated that, which cause decreased microbiome biodiversity, right? So when you don't have as many variety of microbiome, then it's not good, right? And also it causes more pro-inflammatory bacteria and fewer anti-inflammatory bacteria. Yes, so the lady who just took a picture there, you're in the probiotic group. I love it. So you're going to remember that probiotics, the fiber is good for your probiotics, right? And probiotic biodiversity is important, all right? You're going to help all of us remember that, because no one can remember everything that's in a talk. So we're going to divide and conquer, okay? Thank you very much. So summarizing, risk factor group, what did you learn? Eat lots of fiber. Yes, eat lots of fruits and vegetables, less sugar, stay away from processed food. Westernization of diet leads to increased IBD, right? Vegetarian diets leads to less IBD, okay? And probiotic group, how does it happen, right? Our probiotic group is going to help us with that, right? So lady in the white t-shirt, what did you learn? Yes, oh, we have two ladies in a white t-shirt. I love it. Fruits and vegetables, right? Fiber, they feature probiotics and they make short-chain fatty acids, which then decreases your inflammation, right? And also what's important about probiotics, lady in the shawl, in the probiotic biodiversity, is the most important thing. That's what really matters. Yes. So what about treatment? See, you guys thought you could just like goof off on your phone and not pay attention, right? So treatment. What is the relationship between a vegetarian diet and IBD treatment? You guys gonna remember this, right? There's no pimping involved, no. So this is a really interesting study. So what if you already got IBD, right? You got the chronic inflammatory bowel disease, right? This is a study that was done in India, where they looked at 2 treatment groups. This is for biologic induction. Both treatment groups got Remicade, infliximab, and one group had normal diet, one group had plant-based diet, right? As you can see on this slide, the group that had plant-based diet had a much higher response rate. Their rate of induction was much, much higher than people who were on a normal diet. Here's another study for remission. People who are on a semi-vegetarian diet had a much better remission rate than those who are on a omnivorous diet. And then here is for relapse prevention, right? So people who are on, so you got inducted with your biologic, you're in remission. What about prevention of relapse, right? And so people who are on a plant-based diet had a 77% improvement in their symptoms and so forth, and only 19% relapse after 5 years. So it really helps in terms of prevention of a disease relapse as well. So treatment group, what is your take-home message? Beautiful, beautiful. Yes. So whole food plant-based diet improves the efficacy of the treatment, essentially, right, of the biologics. And so people ask me this a lot. And I see people like end up in the hospitals with severe IBD flare. And a lot of times they're told like, you should just rest your gut, and low fiber diet, low residue diet is a thing to do when you have colonic inflammation. And I really don't know where that came from, honestly. There's no data for that. I think it's really like, it just sounds good, right? Because you think your bowels are all like really raw and inflamed and bloody looking. And fiber, I was taught when I was in med school, fiber is like sandpaper, and the sandpaper is rubbing against all that rawness. It will make it even more bloodier, right? This kind of sounds good, but reality is, I really don't think there's any science behind that. I think, so overall, what I tell my patients is when when your disease is controlled, when you have mild inflammatory bowel disease, you really need to eat a high fiber diet because you need those good, healthy probiotics, right? To keep things moving, to help your gut, right? If you're really in a severe attack, you may want to stay away from fiber, but I don't think it's because fiber is sandpaper. I think it's actually, there is always an intermix of IBD and IBS. So most patients with, if you think of IBS as sort of a dysfunction of the visceral nervous system, the enteric nervous system in the gut, right? And anyone who's got inflammation of their gut, the whole gut is damaged. It's also damaging their little nerves in the gut as well. So they all have some kind of discomfort that is probably from what we would call IBS or functional bowel disease. So there always is, traditionally the teachings, there's always an intermix with inflammatory bowel disease and irritable bowel syndrome. So people with irritable bowel syndrome may not tolerate roughage quite as well because of that nervous system hypersensitivity that they have, okay? And I'll get to that in a little bit as well. So IBS, where's my IBS group? All the way in the back. Hello, don't worry, I haven't forgotten you all. Okay, so this is going to be real quick and easy, okay? So IBS, irritable bowel syndrome, there's 3 types. IBS with constipation, okay? IBS with diarrhea, and IBS with constipation and diarrhea. So hard, I know that's, medical school is really difficult, I know, right? So any guesses here to help our friends there in the back group? IBS with constipation, what do we use to treat it? What is the #1 recommendation that you will give? Fiber, thank you. IBS with constipation, we treat it with fiber. Okay, next one. This is hard. IBS with diarrhea, what do we treat it with? Thank you. Oh my gosh, you guys are so smart. I love it. And all the smart ones are sitting here in the front row. All right, IBS with diarrhea, we also treat it with fiber. But I have some people like, huh? Isn't that going to give you more diarrhea? No. I'll explain that in a minute. The third type, the mixed type, IBS with constipation and diarrhea. Any guesses? Everyone? Thank you. Oh man. See, GI is so easy. All right. So, IBS group. Okay. Lady in the pink. Your job is to remember IBS treated with fiber. Okay, that's your job. You're going to remember that. Okay. Thank you. Now, I have a lot of patients who come to me and say, but I can't tolerate fiber. Do you ever hear about that? It gives me bloating, makes me feel uncomfortable. I can't tolerate it. And it's interesting how most people, when they come to see me, when I say eat more fiber, they think of salad. That's it. They're like, yeah, I eat salad. When was the last time I like salad? When was the last time you had a salad? Last week. Do you guys ever hear that? I mean, I'm not the only one, right? So, there's more to fiber than just a salad. So raw vegetables, if you have visceral hypersensitivity, your nerves in your gut are hypersensitive in people with irritable bowel syndrome. And when you eat a lot of fiber, raw things, right, it makes your gut work more. And so you think of it as almost like, I tell my patients, like a sensitive little 2-year-old in your gut. It actually does have same number of nerves in your gut as there is in a 2-year-old's brain. Okay. So you think of it as like you have this little sensitive little 2-year-old. If you're going to make it work really hard by feeding it lots of raw fiber, it is not going to be happy. Will throw a tantrum at you. Okay. And give you all kinds of IBS symptoms. Right. So what do? You cook your fiber. Okay. If you eat more cooked vegetables, it's actually a lot more tolerable. So fiber is not contraindicated in people with IBS. We treat IBS with fiber. If you can't tolerate the fiber because of the visceral hypersensitivity, cook it, okay? And then just increase the amount slowly over time. So I'm going to skip the summary because you all got it. Group one. Group one. I don't have a one. Probiotic group. Okay. Lady in the white t-shirt. What was your line? What do probiotics eat? Yes, probiotics eat fiber, okay? To keep them alive, you have to eat fiber, which comes from fruits and vegetables and plant-based foods, right? Lady in the shawl, what is your line? Yes, probiotic biodiversity is the best. If you don't feed them, they will die. Another quick evidence, people in Africa have double the biodiversity as people in America. Double the number of species of biodiversity compared to us because they eat more fiber, okay? And risk factor group, what do you remember? Yes, thank you. Whole food plant-based diet, reduce your risk for inflammatory bowel disease. Westernization of our diet increases your risk for inflammatory bowel disease. And what happens when you treat inflammatory bowel disease? Thank you. So whole food plant-based diet increases efficacy of treatment, okay, with inflammatory bowel disease. IBS, lady in the pink, what? Fiber. I love it. Fiber is the treatment for all of IBS. Essentially, that's the recommendation, right? It's actually a lot more complicated than that. And lady in the blue, what do you remember? Excellent. So we use fiber to treat everything. So bottom line, everyone read out loud. Look at the slide. Bottom line, a plant-based diet prevents and reduces GI diseases. It is a very cost-effective treatment, cheaper than biologics. All right, excellent.